Amos Kenan, also Amos Kenan, was an Israeli columnist, painter, sculptor, playwright and novelist. Life. Amos Kenan was born Amos Levine in South Tel Aviv in 1927. His parents were secular socialists. His father was a GD Harvard, a veteran and construction worker. At one point, the family lived in Argentina for several years when his father took work there. When the family returned, his father was injured in a work accident and subsequently became a clerk. He was a member of Hashomer Hatzair youth movement. In 1946 he met the poet Yonatan Ratosh and joined Ratosh's Canaanite movement, which he remained identified with until the early 1950s. He was among the founders of the movement's magazine, Aleph, in which he published his first book in 1949. Kenan dropped out of high school to become a factory worker. Kenan was a member of the Levi Underground. In 1989 he told The Guardian, "I joined because it was an anti-imperialist and anti-colonialist organization. We didn't fight the Arabs." During the 1948 Arab-Israeli War he fought in the 8th Brigade of the Israel Defense Forces, under the command of Yitzhak Sadeh, and was wounded. During the war he met Uri Avnery, who became his friend and colleague. Kenan took part in the Deir Yassin massacre. The Independent's Daphne Baram writes that Kenan's account of the attack on the village and his role in it varied over the course of his life, and the Al-Dawaima massacre, according to Ilan Pappy. According to Avnery, Kenan always asserted that the massacre was not intended, or that it did not take place at all. He himself was wounded at the beginning of the action, he asserted, and did not see what happened. From April 1950 until June 1952, Kenan wrote a satirical column in Haaretz called Uzi and Amp Co., succeeding Benjamin Tammuz, who had started the column in 1948. Uzi and Amp Co., regarded as the first anti-establishment column in Israel, took particular aim at the religious establishment. In 1952, Kenan was arrested, along with his friend and former Lefi colleague Shaltiel Ben-Yair, in connection with an assassination attempt on Israeli Transportation Minister David Zvi Pinkas. In the wake of Pinkas' decision to shut down public transportation on Shabbat, the two were arrested as they were leaving Pinkas' home, but said nothing under interrogation and were acquitted by the district court for lack of evidence. However, Haaretz publisher Gershom Schocken terminated his column. Kenan eventually told his wife, Nurat Gertz, as well as close friends and colleagues, that he really was involved in the bombing. In 2008, Gertz published a biography of Kenan in which he states this. He began writing for Tarzan magazine under a pen name. In 1952, Kenan's Uzi and Amp Co. columns were collected in his first book, With Whips and Scorpions. From 1954 to 1962, Kenan lived in Paris, where he worked as a sculptor and published several plays drawing on the theatre of the absurd. Pierre Alyoshinsky illustrated two of his books and Maurice Begit adapted his plays, which were mounted in Paris and Switzerland. During that time he wrote a column for Avnery's magazine Ha'olam Hazer, called The Wandering Knight, and a column called Sparks from the City of Lights for Yedioat Ahronot. His writing was translated into French by his partner, Christiane Rochefort. Rochefort's first novel, Warrior's Rest, was inspired by Kenan. In Paris, Kenan participated in meetings between Arabs and Israelis arranged by the Egyptian communist émigré Henriku. He also arranged a meeting between himself, Avnery, and Jean-Paul Sartre in which Sartre praised the Israeli left. Kenan was a member of Avnery's political group Semitic Action. He returned to Israel in 1962 and began writing a weekly column in Yedioat Ahronot that ran for 40 years. years. In 1962, Keinan married Nurit Gertz, a literary scholar. They had two daughters, the journalist Shlom Zion Keinan and the poet and singer-songwriter Rona Keinan. He was also the paper's food critic. He edited a newspaper named Zipor HaNefesh with Dan Benemotz and contributed articles to the New York Times and The Nation. After the Six-Day War, he was sent by the Israeli Ministry of Foreign Affairs to interview intellectuals such as Jean-Paul Sartre, Herbert Marcuse and Noam Chomsky on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. The World Zionist Organization arranged a lecture tour of American universities, intended to combat the increasingly anti-Israel stance of the campus left. During the 1970s he directed several films, including How Wonderful. He wrote songs for Arik Lavi, The High Windows, Hagashash Hahiva and others. His play, The Lost Train, was presented in the Camry Theatre. He wrote the screenplay to Uri Zohar's film, A Hole in the Moon, and acted in Moshe Mizrahi's film Customer of the Off-Season. His plays include The Lion, The Balloon, Maybe It's an Earthquake, Something Not Normal, Friends Talk About Jesus and Still Believe in You. Friends Talk About Jesus was revoked by the Supreme Court of Israel in 1972. The court ruled that it was a repulsive mix of desecration of the Christian faith. It also said that a writer, a playwright, to lash out to his heart's content at fallen religious figures through the use of criticism or satire, but that portraying God himself on stage in a way that is contemptuous of believers' faith is beyond the bounds of what is legally permissible. Here, in the 1970s, Keinan was a member of the Israeli Council for Israeli-Palestinian Peace. In the late 1970s he joined Ariel Sharon's short-lived Shlom Party, named after Keinan's daughter. In 1984 he published The Road to Ein Harod, a dystopian novel which portrays a future Israel in the grip of a civil war following a military coup. It was translated into 8 languages and was adapted into a film in 1990. His book To Your Country, To Your Homeland served as a basis for Moti Kirschenbaum's documentary series To the Water Wells, which portrayed a meeting between two patriots in disagreement, Keinan and Naomi Shima. He translated The Good Soldier SVEJK into Hebrew. In the 1980s he was the curator of the Tefnopen Museum. His paintings and sculptures have been displayed in various galleries in Israel. In 1995, Keinan and Yedio Aharonot were fined for 2 articles Keinan wrote during the First Intifada criticizing light sentences handed out for violence against Palestinians. Keinan was fined 1,000 shekels, the newspaper 7,500. Keinan died in Tel Aviv in 2009, and was buried at Kibbutz Sinat. He had struggled for years with Alzheimer's disease. Awards and commemoration. In 1962, the Sam Spiegel Prize. In 1970, the Israel Cinema Council Prize. In 1975, an honorary award by the French Ministry of Culture. In 1995, the International Theatre Institute Award. In 1998, the Brenner Prize. In 2008, Gertz published Al Daat Atzmo, an account of Keinan's early life, ending with his years in Paris. In 2009, Rona Keinan released an album called Songs for Joel, loosely based on Keinan's life story. Published works. Books in Hebrew with Whips and Scorpions, Tel Aviv, 1952. At the Station, Ladori, 1963. Book of Pleasures, Levin Epstein, 1968. The Blue Door, Shocken, 1972. Show 2, AL, 1975. Under the Flowers, Prosa, 1979. On Your Country, On Your Homeland, Ed Annam, 1981. The Book of Satire, Keter, 1984. The Road to Ein Harod, Amoved, 1984. Love in the End, Keter, 1988. Tulips Our Brothers, Keter, 1989. Poems, Tag, 1995. Blog 23, Z. Morabitan, 1996. Rose of Jericho, Z. Morabitan, 1998. End of Reptile Era, Z. Morabitan, 1999. The Escape to Prison, Z. Morabitan, 2003. Books translated into English. Kenan, Amos. The Road to Ein Harod. Saki Books. p. 114. ISBN 0863560024. Performed plays The Lion, The Balloon, 1959. The Lost Train, 1969. Maybe It's an Earthquake, 1970. Something Not Normal. Friends Talk About Jesus. Still Believe in You.